Welcome back, Tyrants. We took a little break, but we are now back to discuss chapters 1002, 1003, and 1004 of One Piece. Now, since this is going to be a mega review, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about the two major things that have happened over the course of these chapters. We get the big rooftop fight, and we have basically everything else that's happening below on Onigashima. So without further ado, let's start talking about the Yonko versus the new generation. Chapters 1002 and 1003 are all dedicated to the fight up top, and that's surprising because usually we don't stick to these big fights that long. I think a lot of people were expecting us to go down to the base of Onigashima a lot sooner than we did, but we ended up getting a lot from the fight. So let's talk about every fighter and what they've brought to the table so far. First, I want to talk about Kid, who in my opinion has been the least impressive of the entire bunch. He's got the punk rotten getup now, so he has his giant mech armor, and at most, it's mostly just getting destroyed by Kaido's attacks. You know, it's not doing a whole lot of damage. We see him do a slam, but I really don't think that did anything to Kaido. And for the most part, he's just tanking all the hits Kaido keeps launching out. Not only does it seem like from his dialogue that he doesn't have any of the Ryo that Luffy's using right now, but I really haven't seen any Haki usage from him. It doesn't look like he's putting armament on his metal, it doesn't look like he's doing it to himself, it looks like he's literally just trying to attack Kaido with big chunks of metal. And based on his past defeat by Kaido, he should know that's not going to work. Even with everyone else laying in like they are, just hitting him with pieces of metal isn't going to do anything. He would have more luck trying to stab Kaido with the metal than trying to just physically brute force his way through. And he's consistently shocked by the damage output that Luffy has, so this is making me think that he really doesn't have that upper level of combat ability that Luffy does. He doesn't have the ability to deal out damage like that, and so what he's doing now is pretty much subpar in my opinion. Up next is Killer, who is probably the most surprising to me by far. I think Killer has been doing more than his captain even as far as what's been happening in this fight. And that's just based off the few moves that we've seen him do and what it looks like it actually does to Kaido. While his decapitation move didn't really seem to do anything, his move Sonic Scythe is probably the most interesting I've seen in the fight so far, and it actually managed to do some damage to Kaido. What I can wager from just the name and how it looks is that he's using Sonic Wave to damage Kaido from the inside. I would assume that he's basically spinning his Punisher so fast that they're causing some kind of sonic vibration, and this is resonating through Kaido. Now, since his moveset has never really been elaborated on before, it seems like he could have more of this in his arsenal. He could have more tricks than just, cutting in his arsenal. He was also able to get back up after Indra, and he's able to deflect Kaido's air sights. So not only is he, doing damage, but he's also hanging in there as far as durability goes. He's taking hits, he's blocking hits. He's doing fairly well in the combat scenario, and honestly, he looks better than Kid right now, which really shouldn't be the case. Up next, let's take a look at Law. And Law is basically fighting how I expected him to. He's being a support, and I think that's the role that he fulfills best in this kind of scenario, because his fighting style, his Devil Fruit, isn't really made for the type of brawl that this is. As we've seen in the past, 1v1s are more his style than there are these giant brawls where you have multiple targets, you have multiple people fighting at once. It becomes a hassle for him to use his abilities on the offensive. However, as far as support goes, he's been moving people around, he's been dodging things himself with his abilities, and he's been placing people in the right areas so he can get the most out of their abilities. And I think that's where Law is going to shine the most in this fight. He's going to maneuver, he's going to use his ability to be the strategist of the fight, and I think since everyone else is kind of like heavy attackers, they need someone like Law to kind of keep things in order. Now, Law has landed a few hits on the Yonko. He's landed Gamma Knife on Kaido, he's landed Counter Shock on Big Mom, and I think he's the only one so far who has gone out explicitly to attack Big Mom. I don't think anyone else has done that. They've all been focusing on Kaido. Now, I don't think either of his attacks did a whole lot. I would see Gamma Knife doing a bit more than Counter Shock, but it looks like everyone's relatively fine from those attacks, so it doesn't seem like they were too effective towards the Yonko. Now let's talk about Zoro, and I think he was the one we were expecting probably the most out of this fight. You know, you have Luffy, who is the main character and who obviously has the best capabilities of fighting Kaido, but we know that Zoro also has the ability to do a lot of damage to Kaido as well, and we have a lot of expectations from Zoro to basically back up Luffy and to be able to do the kind of damage or near damage that Luffy is doing right now. And he has not been disappointing. You know, he is deflecting the air size, he took an Indra strike, he's out here maneuvering, keeping Luffy safe, cutting through blast breath, cutting through fire. He's basically being Luffy's main support. Like, he's doing enough damage on his own, but he's definitely making sure that Luffy is being able to do what he needs to do. We also see Zoro adapting to Enma on the fly. You know, we saw that the first move he launched didn't necessarily have enough Haki in it. The next time when he used his Flying Dragon Blaze, that had possibly too much in it. Enough that Big Mom said that Kaido needed to dodge that attack, and we saw the kind of devastation that it landed. Personally, I think the reason that move missed is because that's going to be one of the final moves of the fight, and it's going to do a lot of damage when it actually hits, so I don't think we'll be seeing that again until the fight is near its conclusion. We also see Tatsumaki again, and we see that in response to Kaido using his own Dragon Twisters, but what we get from Zoro's is that he's using Enma, and with that he's able to actually cut through Kaido's scales. Now, we've all been waiting for the moment when Zoro cuts Kaido, and it's good to finally have it, and not only that, but in the method of using a Dragon Twister to counter a Dragon Twister. You know, it's a very fulfilling moment, and we're definitely going to start seeing Zoro cut Kaido a lot more, now that it looks like he kinda has the idea of how much Haki he needs to use to make Enma useful. Now, I'm going to expect Zoro to be more defensive until Luffy gets his Haki back, but I think we're still going to be seeing a lot more damage output from Zoro in this fight. Now on to Luffy, who basically is doing what Luffy came to do. He's laying hits on Kaido, and since it seems like he's the only one who has the form of Rio that can really hurt Kaido, I think he's the one who's doing the most damage out of everyone who's up here right now. Now, he's been in Gear 4th, he's been laying, you know, Kong Gatling, Rhino Schneider, Kong Gun, Kong Rifle. He's been laying all these hits. They haven't had new names, so we don't really know if he's using Rio. I'd like to assume he is, because it looks like Kaido is taking a lot of damage from this. And previously we know that a lot of Luffy's attacks, even in Gear 4th, didn't do anything to Kaido. It seems like these have a bit more punch to them. It's still yet to be shown if he has any moves like Red Rock in his Gear 4 arsenal, but I assume we'll see that possibly in a new mode, or if Luffy goes back into Gear 4th after the time limit. Now let's switch gears and talk about the Yonko, and first we're going to talk about Big Mom. Now, Big Mom has basically been the support for the Yonko side of the fight. For the most part, when we see her throw a move, when we see her attack, it's in response to something the Supernova did. Each time she uses an attack, it's against them going against Kaido. She isn't necessarily directly fighting anyone, and to be honest, no one is directly fighting her. Law is the only person who went out of his way to attack her. Everyone else's attention is on Kaido. We see a lot more of her lightning ability and the devastating power that has, and it reminds me of the storms we see when she sends her army to fight. You know, she has these giant thunderous domains where lightning is raining from the sky, and this is what that looks like right now. You know, we're seeing the Indra, we're seeing the heavy domains, we see so much of the lightning domain, and I think this is what she normally does when she has those big fights. It seems like either the lightning has its own sentience or she has some control over it, as she can call and command the lightning to strike wherever she wants, whenever she wants. Honestly, even as a support character, they cannot afford to take their eyes off of Big Mom for any long period of time, because if she lands a hit, it's going to be devastating. None of the people who were hit with Indra were, immediately back up. I think they got back up eventually, but it took them out for a couple. Killer was falling all the way to the ground and Kaido was about to eat him before Luffy stopped him, so the moves pack enough damage to at least temporarily incapacitate you. And this is still Big Mom, who hasn't really started fighting. She's not using any of her raw physical strength. She's only using her homie abilities. So she's still got a lot in her arsenal, and if we haven't tired her out for this fight, she's definitely going to be a problem. Last but not least, let's talk about Kaido and why he is proving to be at the top of the verse as a fighter. Each of the Supernovas have been laying into Kaido with some of their best attacks, some of their strongest attacks, and Kaido has been eating them all up. He's definitely accumulating damage now. It looks like either the Sonic Spikes, the Tatsumaki, Luffy's calling Gatling, these are all doing damage to Kaido, but not enough to keep him down for any long period of time. He's pretty much tanked all that, and he's getting back up, and he's unleashing a new flurry of new moves every single time. We see him using Dragon Twister, we see him using Gale Force and Destruction Blades. He's comboing his moveset. I can't remember the last time I saw someone combo a moveset in One Piece like he's doing it right now. It would seem that his moveset does really have the effects of a natural disaster or many natural disasters. He's basically a walking natural disaster, and that kind of speaks to his calamities, as they're supposed to be named after disasters, yet Kaido himself is many all capped into one. And interestingly enough, as I mentioned in one of the previous reviews, these movesets keep looking like moves from Pirate Warriors 4. If you haven't played that game yet, if you haven't seen Kaido's moveset, check it out. Look at all the moves that Kaido has in this game, which came out some time ago. Each of the ones that he's using in the recent chapters, we've seen in this game. So it's starting to look like either the developers got some kind of insight as to what Kaido could do, or they just got really lucky and made some really awesome guesses. If we see Kaido at some point create an ice storm or do something of that nature, then I think the game will definitely have had some kind of insight onto Kaido's moveset. And that means that if they have his moveset, who else might they have? Now, in the last bits of the fight, we do get Kaido in his hybrid form. Now, he is silhouetted, we don't see what it looks like, we just see basically his hand and he's holding his club. And we see that his hand kind of has a reptilian look to it. It's got scales on it, it's got claws, but it still has a human form. So what I'm expecting this form to look like reminds me of Page 1's form. I think it's going to be like that, but a lot more fierce and a lot more aggressive looking than what Page 1 looked like. And if the assumption is correct, in this hybrid form, we're going to see Kaido unleash speed and strength like we've never seen him use before, which is a problem because Luffy no longer has Haki, at least for 10 minutes. This means that everyone else has to deal with hybrid form Kaido for 10 minutes without Luffy, who is their main damage dealer. Personally, I don't see it going well, but there might be something that isn't necessarily introduced yet that we could see being used against Kaido, just to stall him out until Luffy is back. Now, even though we had a large portion of the fight, in chapter 1004, we get some insight on what's going on around the rest of Onigashima. We see that CP0 has been invited, and they've been waiting around this whole time. They're basically hoping for everyone to take each other out. You know, they benefit the most from the Yonko, the New Generation, all the pirates falling. So they're not intervening. They're literally waiting for their chance to pretty much claim a victory, even without doing anything. And oddly enough, one of the people who have the Bao Huang paper over their face is with them and kind of giving them information. I find this weird because I don't necessarily think that Bao Huang or any of that group are affiliated with CP0, but CP0 is clearly talking about waiting for Kaido and Big Mom to fall, which goes against what they would need. So it's weird that they're letting them talk like that and they're not taking any action. That makes me think that there's some kind of connection between CP0 and the people with this mask that we're not seeing quite yet. Now, what CP0 plans to do at the end of the fight, I'm not entirely sure. I could expect them to try and take out any strong people who are basically out of energy from fighting, just so they can claim the weapons trade, they can claim Wano, and they can claim to be the victors. Now, I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think they're going to leave pretty empty-handed, but I also think they're going to be the ones who inform the rest of the world about what happened on Wano. They're going to let the world know who did what and how it can work into their own plans. We also see Tama, and it looks like her plan is basically what everyone expected. She's using the full force of the Kibidongos to pretty much take over the gifters. Now, this I don't have a problem with. I fully expected this to happen, and I'm okay with it. The thing that I think I and a lot of others are worried about is the cap of skill these dongos will take over. Like, can they actually transfer full zone users to Tama's side? Could ulti in page 1 be swayed? Could, the Togorobo, could high tiers be swayed by one Kibidango? If so, that becomes too powerful for a fight like this where everyone's a zone user. Now, since she made the dongos beforehand and she obviously has a limit to how many she can make, I don't think we're going to see her using them for the entirety of the rest of the arc. I think it's just mainly this point where we're trying to even out the numbers. We're trying to make it not look so lopsided for one team. And with Tama here, we also have Nami and Usopp, who bring page 1 and ulti. Now, Nami managed to land a Thunderlance Tempo and ulti, which doesn't take her out. It definitely deals some damage, and it incurs more of ulti's wrath. Nami also makes a comment about it not being strong enough, which kind of makes you think that at some point Nami's going to launch a stronger attack that will actually knock ulti out. Usopp is firing the Kibidangos into people's mouths and taking them over that way, and obviously that's where Usopp shines best. I think we're still going to see him do a little bit more in the page 1 ulti fight, but I think at this point in time, he has a role, and that's getting as many gifters as he can to eat the Kibidangos. Tama and everyone basically interrupt Frankie and Sasaki's fight, and it turns it into more of a 1v1 than Frankie versus Sasaki and the Armored Core. You basically have gifters fighting other gifters and keeping them out of the way of the fight so that Frankie can kind of focus on Sasaki. And he managed to land a really good blow on Sasaki. What I think this means is that we're going to see a new hybrid form, and we're going to see that strange sword we saw some chapters ago make an appearance, because it looks like General Frankie might have the upper hand at this point in time. Now we can hop on over to Sanji, and we'll see that he's still in the same predicament that he was in pretty much as soon as he left Luffy and Jinbei. He took out all the male fighters in the area, and now all it's left are the females, and obviously Sanji is not going to hit a female, so that puts him at a huge disadvantage. Now, I'm not surprised at how this played out. This is basically how Sanji's fights go if a woman is involved. There's no real other way to look at it, and this was what was going to happen. At this point, they've pretty much confirmed that Robin is going to be here, and this is what I wanted to see, and that's Robin versus Black Maria. But basically, they're telling Sanji to call Robin to their area so that they can capture her. And Black Maria mentions that it's Kaido's orders. One of the things that I think about with that is, was this an order given before or after Big Mom mentioned to leave Robin alive? When did that come about? If it was beforehand, then that makes things interesting because there are parts of Kaido's plan that he hasn't told Big Mom yet. If it came after, then that makes sense because that's what Big Mom wants out of the Straw Hat crew. Now, I heard a good theory watching Sawyer 7 Mage's video, and that was that Sanji's basically acting as a scapegoat so that Robin can come in pretty much undetected. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because we know Sanji is fast and we know Sanji has his raid suit. There really shouldn't be any reason he can't escape from this scenario when he has those two options. Even if he doesn't want to fight, it looks like he can break through the webs, and it looks like he has had some time since he's been fighting the males to actually leave. So there's got to be some reason that Sanji's still here, other than the fact that he's not attacking any of the females. Or at least I would hope there's a reason Sanji's still here. I think we'll get more of that once we get Robin into the fray, but for now, I mean, this is, like I said, this is kind of expected. We'll see how it plays out. And as a last tidbit, we also get what looks to be a new character entering the Onigashima fray. Someone is downstairs helping the scabbards heal up, and they are silhouetted, of course. Now, we don't know exactly who this is, and we don't know why they're here. A lot of the speculation is that it's either Toki or Hiyori. For me, my initial thought that it wasn't either. Honestly, it looks more like a male figure to me, and it instantly reminded me of someone like Kobe. So I don't necessarily get the Hiyori Toki vibes from it, but I understand why that one will make the most sense. Now, I'm pretty confident that Toki is gone. I think just having her alive introduces a lot of problems as far as her devil fruit. I think that's too powerful to still have in the story, and I don't see a reason why they would add her here and then just have her stay here. She wouldn't really belong in this time period. It wouldn't make sense for her to jump to a new time period. It kind of feels like Toki's story has been completed especially since Odin is no longer in the story as well. The option that makes the most sense is Hiyori, seeing as we haven't seen her in such a long time, and of all the people to be here right now, it being her makes the most sense, but I would definitely enjoy it if it was something different. But that's going to do it for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed the mega review. Once again, we are back. We're going to be making videos each week like we were last time. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.